Chosen one, be careful. This message didn't arrive by chance. It was time to reach you in this exact moment. You were pulled by divine timing. What if I told you they never meant for you to remember your power? You weren't drawn here for entertainment. You were summoned to recall a destiny that began before your first breath. Every rejection, every whisper of doubt cast your way by those closest to you was never personal. It was the first line of defense from a system that felt its chains beginning to tremble. Today, you will learn why your family's distance was never a mistake, how ancestral patterns recognized you as a threat, and how you can step into the role you were born to fulfill. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. Stay with me, because by the end you'll know not only why you were targeted, but how to wield that truth as your greatest weapon. You were born into the pattern to break it. A soft glow settled over your earliest memory, as if the room itself recognized the moment you arrived. You might see it in a dream now, a cradle woven from moonlight and roots, the air humming with unspoken tension. Somewhere in that silver sanctuary, you sensed eyes watching you before you even opened your own. It wasn't just the curious gaze of family. It felt deeper, as though unseen elders paused in their tasks to note your coming. That first breath you drew rippled through currents older than your parents' stories, stirring echoes that would guide every choice you'd make. In that hush before life truly began, a question formed in the silent spaces. What destiny calls this newborn soul? You remember the ache of standing out before you understood why. At school, you puzzled over peers who never quite matched the cadence of your thoughts. You noticed how teachers frowned when you asked questions that leapt beyond the syllabus, and how playmates drifted away when your laughter carried too much intensity. In church pews, the hymns felt like incomplete echoes. Your heart sought harmonies unsung. You carried a sensitivity as natural as breathing, and yet it marked you as other. You wondered if you were faulty wiring or a stray note in the grand song of life. Those doubts formed a cloak around your shoulders, heavy with the weight of wanting to belong yet knowing you never fully would. What if this loneliness was never a defect, but a calling? Those experiences of being too much, too strange, too raw were threads in a tapestry you were destined to weave. Beneath every confusion lay a pattern of purpose, an unseen architecture shaped by forces beyond the everyday. In Genesis 50 verse 20, Joseph reminds us, "You meant evil against me. God meant it for good." And your own story bears that same reversal. Every sidelining glance, every door closed against you, was part of a divine design to prepare you for a role only you could fulfill. The pain you felt became the scaffold upon which your power would be built, each trial a deliberate stone laid by hands unseen. As you moved through life, subtle signs began to surface, soft codes whispered on the breeze of your intuition. A recurring dream of a broken seal that repaired itself in moonlight, the sudden insistence to turn back at mile marker 13, or the song that played on loop the moment you needed courage. You noticed numbers flickering on clocks with impossible symmetry, and a scent of rain whenever you felt lost. These moments felt accidental until you gathered them like constellations in your mind's sky. They formed patterns too precise to ignore, guiding you toward choices that would awaken the promise written in your bone marrow. In the quiet moments when you dared to trust your inner compass, confirmation arrived like a gentle dawn. You spoke a truth at work and watched a coworker catch its reflection in their eyes, nodding in silent agreement. You followed a hunch to reach out to an old friend and discovered a mutual insight that reshaped your path. Each time you acted on that whisper within, the world shifted to make space for you. It wasn't a revelation of thunder and lightning, but a soft unfolding, a sense that every step aligned exactly as it should. In those hushed victories, you felt the slick of certainty beneath your feet, a promise that your intuition had guided you faithfully all along. As this awakening deepened, you began to realize that your true self was not something to become, but to remember. You peeled back the layers of doubt, shame, and external expectation until you stood before the essence you carried before birth. Like a seed bursting through hardened soil, that self emerged with an ancient vibration, an echo of a time when you walked freely between realms. In Psalm 139 verse 13 it is said, "For you formed my inward parts, You knitted me together in my mother's womb. And you now sense that knitting as a sacred blueprint of identity. Remembering who you are means reclaiming the sovereign soul they tried to silence. With that reclamation comes your first activation, a slow, deliberate step into the light of your purpose. You find yourself speaking with a calm authority that surprises even you, offering insights that stir hearts into motion. You stand taller in conversations, feeling the roots of your presence dig deeper into the earth. Your sensitivity no longer strikes as weakness, but resonates as a gift that reads the undercurrents of human truth. This is the moment your hunger for meaning transforms into action, as you embrace the call to live fully aligned with the destiny etched into your very cells. Your arrival at this message was no accident. You have been summoned by forces older than memory to fulfill a mission that spans lifetimes. Comment lineage if you've ever felt the tremor of ancestral code stir within you, and share a moment when you recognized your birth was the first step in a destiny written long before you arrived. Know this, what you've lived, felt, and endured was always preparing you for the path ahead. Next, you will learn how the resistance you faced becomes the crucible forging the allies and alliances you need to carry this mission into the world. And if you feel called to go even deeper, there's a sacred space reserved for our community, a private room where you receive full prophetic messages daily. Join our private membership through the link in the description and walk this path with us. Why gifts trigger resistance from within. A tremor of awareness rippled through you when you noticed the first flicker of doubt in their eyes. A grandparent's dismissive glance as you described a vivid dream. A sibling's polite but forced nod when you spoke of energies nobody else perceived. That moment felt small, almost insignificant, yet it carried the weight of something profound. The realization that your gifts were triggering a silent alarm in those around you. It wasn't envy, but a deep, spiritual reflex. An instinct to protect the familiar stories and comfortable illusions they held dear. In that instant, you sensed a subtle current of resistance weaving itself into the fabric of your relationships. The hush that followed your words was not mere awkwardness. It was the first sign of the hidden battle lines being drawn against the truth you carried. Loneliness arrived not as grand isolation, but as a constant undercurrent of feeling too much. You remember the sting of a parent's raised eyebrow when you wept over injustice you'd read about, the embarrassment of speaking passionately at a gathering only to be met with hurried topic changes. Shame crept into your bones, whispering that perhaps your sensitivity was a liability, that your insight was a burden no one asked for. You oscillated between fighting for your voice and shrinking away, wondering whether the ache in your chest was the price you paid for seeing more deeply than others dared. Then came the dawning insight that these hurts were not random slights, but part of a larger structure. An invisible network of traditions and beliefs erected to maintain the status quo. Like exiles wandering the wilderness, you felt the push of ancient systems reacting to your potential. In Luke 4 verse 1, Jesus is led by the Spirit into the desert to face trials that purify and strengthen. In your own life, the trials you endured were not punishments but rites of passage designed to forge your gifts into instruments of healing and revelation. The walls you felt closing in were not personal failures, but walls of an old kingdom bracing itself against the inevitable shift your awakening would bring. As you look back, patterns emerge from what seemed like chaos. Job opportunities that evaporated when you dared to suggest a better way, friendships that frayed when your intuition eclipsed polite small talk, mentors who offered praise until your ideas outgrew their comfort. These weren't isolated incidents but recurring betrayals, breadcrumbs on a trail that led straight to the heart of resistance. Each closed door was a test of your resolve, each sudden cancellation a question. Will you persist in your calling or retreat into the shadows? Seeing these connections now feels unsettling, but also clarifying. A lamp switched on in a darkened room, revealing the intricate design of the forces that sought to keep you small. By mid-journey, you felt the first tangible push of spiritual sabotage. The very air around you sometimes grew thick, like walking through a fog engineered to dull your senses. Conversations you once navigated easily became minefields of half-truths and silent judgments. You sensed unseen watchers lurking at the edges of your awareness, as if a network of fears and defenses had assembled a phalanx against your light. Doors that should have opened with a gentle welcome slammed shut without warning, leaving you to wonder whether your path was cursed or whether you simply imagined the obstacles. Yet in that thick air, a spark remained, a reminder that your presence was powerful enough to provoke resistance. Wounded by this invisible pushback, you reacted in ways both predictable and surprising. At times you curled into yourself, withdrawing so deep that even your own intuition felt muffled. Other times you took on the role of peacemaker, smoothing over conflicts at the expense of your own clarity. Occasionally, a fierce spark of rebellion flickered, prompting you to challenge the status quo with quiet defiance. Fear whispered that standing out would cost you everything, and you flirted with the idea of silencing your gifts forever. Yet each reaction, whether withdrawal or revolt, reflected not weakness but the intense pressure of being chosen, of carrying a light that could not be contained. Here, at this turning point, the energy shifts. What once felt like condemnation reveals itself as confirmation. The opposition you face is the proof of your power. Now, you reclaim the parts of yourself you surrendered, your voice, your vision, your courage. Speak your truth in ritualized declaration. I will no longer dim my light to soothe their fears. Feel the fierce pulse of reclamation in your chest, a prophetic drumbeat that dismantles the false walls they built. This moment is not an ending, but a new beginning where every suppressed insight rises as a banner of liberation, and every doubt is transmuted into unwavering resolve. You were opposed because you carry a force strong enough to change everything. The more they pushed, the clearer your purpose became. Every attempt to silence you only amplified the echo of your calling. Let this bold truth settle in your bones. You are powerful, and your path is righteous. Comment resistance if you recognize that every obstacle you faced was a sign of your destined impact. Take heart, for the next chapter will teach you how to channel this momentum into forging the alliances and strategies that will carry your mission forward. And to every soul who supported with a super thanks, thank you. You are keeping this light alive for others who haven't found it yet. If you feel called to help this mission reach more chosen ones, tap the super thanks button below. Your energy supports these messages and helps them travel further. Your voice matters, your belief matters, and your light is felt here. Isolation as a right, not rejection. A sudden hush fell over your world, as if the very fabric of reality had drawn a quiet curtain around you. You recall the moment when every message went unanswered, and social feeds blurred into meaningless noise. In that stillness, a question echoed within. What truth lies hidden in this solitude? The loneliness you once deemed a punishment revealed itself instead as an altar of awakening. In that instant, the strange peace of isolation whispered that your separation was intentional, that you were being ushered into a sacred space where the illusions of belonging could dissolve and the real work of self-discovery begin. In the days that followed, you noticed the hidden language woven through your silence. A repetitive dream of walking alone along a shore at dawn, waves receding to unveil ancient symbols carved in wet sand. A chance phrase overheard on the wind, seek what rests beneath, lingering like a secret passed through time. These were not random echoes but signposts in a code written across your life. Every moment of withdrawal was a stanza in an unspoken poem, inviting you to learn a new script of awakening, to read the undercurrents of existence with eyes unclouded by the chatter of crowds. Your inner senses sharpened in the crucible of solitude. Boundaries you once blurred now stood clear, protecting the sanctuary of your heart. Anxiety that once surged around social gatherings cooled into measured calm. You felt currents of energy in rooms you entered, gauging the authenticity of others' intent. The intuition that you had muffled beneath layers of people-pleasing now roared like a lion unchained. In those private moments, you recognized that the self you thought broken was, in fact, a finely tuned instrument attuned to frequencies of deeper truth. Outside, the world began to realign with the shifts inside you. Doors that remained shut for years creaked open at your touch. Colleagues who once ignored your ideas now sought your perspective. And yet, resistance surfaced too. Unexpected criticisms, whispered doubts, and the familiar fog of misunderstanding. These were not failures but reflections of the divine architecture reassembling around your transformation. What you allowed to arise in silence now echoed back in the world with both welcome and challenge. affirming the sacred patterns at work. Deep within your heart, a dormant memory stirred, the recollection of a time before isolation, when your soul walked freely between worlds. You remembered fragments of conversations with ancient guides, the taste of knowledge unbound by time, and the songs of starlight that once lulled you at night. That memory now resurfaced as a living presence, guiding your steps with an intimacy that transcended words. In that reactivation, you felt the bonds of loneliness transform into the wings of insight, carrying you toward realms you had only glimpsed in fleeting dreams. A luminous vision rose within you. The path ahead was not a distant horizon to chase, but a course you had already set in motion long before your first breath. The future you sought was a tapestry you had woven in the hidden chambers of your spirit, now unfolding thread by thread in the waking world. You no longer required permission from others to claim your place in the unfolding story of awakening. The authority you once looked for externally now burned within, an ancient flame ignited by the rite of isolation, calling you to step fully into your legacy. This moment marks the turning tide of your journey. The solitude that once felt like exile now stands revealed as initiation, a sacred rite that has prepared you to reclaim your voice, restore your vision, and wield your gifts with authority. You sense the roar of your own power, tempered by the quiet confidence born of deep reflection. Your heart beats with renewed purpose, each pulse a drumbeat of reclamation, returning to you everything you thought you had lost: clarity, courage, and a connection to the unseen realms that shape your destiny. Revelation is only the beginning of your odyssey. You were guided into silence not to stay lost, but to emerge as a beacon of truth and compassion. Comment alone if you recognize that your solitude was a sacred preparation, and share a moment when isolation led you to a breakthrough you never anticipated. Your story weaves into the larger tapestry of awakening, inviting others to honor their own rites of separation. And as you step forward from this hallowed space, prepare, for next, you will learn how those eyes that remember will unveil the hidden maps guiding every step of your divine mission, breaking the curse without breaking yourself. They stand at the edge of a precipice, heart pounding in the hush before a decision that cannot be unmade. In that still moment, you ask yourself, which path will I choose? The path of comfortable hiding, or the path of deliberate flight toward everything I've always known at my core? This is no gentle invitation, but a sacred crossroads, where the echo of every lesson learned converges into one question. Will you step forward into the fullness of your calling? Passivity falls away like dust in the wind. The time for waiting has passed. You inhale the charged air of possibility, feeling the gravity of your own potential tug you toward the first unsteady step across the threshold into action. Behind you lies a season of fragments scattered at others' feet. Words you kept silent to preserve fragile peace, hours surrendered to doubts that were never yours, dreams crushed beneath the weight of shoulds dictated by a world unready for your light. Yet each sacrifice was a hidden season of training, not failure, a forge of experience that tempered your resolve and sharpened your vision. Now, with purpose seated deep in your marrow, you call back every piece of your essence. Speak with the authority of ritual. I reclaim my time, my voice, my presence. Let these reclaimed tokens form the crown of your sovereignty, for you are no longer a student of obedience, but a monarch of your own destiny. Within you burns a constellation of gifts waiting to be named and claimed. You carry insight like a sacred compass that pierces through illusion, sensitivity as a living scroll that deciphers the hidden patterns of the heart, memory as an ancient key unlocking doors sealed by doubt, discernment as impenetrable armor against deception, and strength as the roaring forge that fuels every step forward. Others may have labeled your sensitivity as frailty, your intensity as error, but these are your spiritual signatures, tools imbued by the source itself for the work ahead. Enfold them around you like heirloom armor. Let their weight remind you of the fire that courses through your veins and the tasks only you are equipped to perform. You do not seek a map. The path is already woven under your feet, waiting for your trust to reveal its course. Each step forward clarifies the contours of your journey, painting the way with the brushstroke of your own conviction. A breeze stirs the leaves at your ankles as if pointing toward a hidden glade. A bird's cry slices through morning stillness when you pause at doubt's edge, and shafts of sunlight illuminate the next stone in the mosaic of your purpose. In this cinematic procession, action and clarity fuse. You move, and the path appears. With every deliberate footfall, you remember that your destiny is not discovered. It is enacted by the motion of your own heart. Lift your gaze beyond the solitary arc of your own emergence, and you see constellations of awakening lights flickering in the distance, fellow travelers answering the same call. They rise as soul tribes, divine clusters bound by resonance rather than proximity, each heart pulsing in harmony with yours. Stop dimming your glow to fit within a dissolving world. Your beam amplifies theirs and reshapes the horizon for all. Together, you form an order not bound by old structures but fueled by shared vision. A living network of awakened souls co-creating a new reality. Recognize this collective alignment and step into your place among them, for your mission is woven through the lives of many. Now, take command of your energy with the solemnity of a sacred ceremony. Draw boundaries like consecrated walls around your heart, permitting only that which resonates with your highest truth. Decide what receives your yes and what earns your no, each choice an offering to your divine stewardship. In 1 Chronicles 12 verse 32 we read of men who understood the times and knew what Israel should do. So too, you are entrusted with currents that shape destiny. Hold your alignment with reverence, for you carry not ego but the arc of purpose, and every intention you set ripples through the cosmic web. Everything you have felt, feared, and survived has converged in this moment. The storms that tested you, the shadows that tried to snuff your spark, and the whispers that doubted your voice were all guides leading you here. Hear this prophecy as it reverberates through your bones. You are ready. No hesitation remains fit to stand before this truth. Your heart beats in cadence with the pulse of creation, and your spirit rises like dawn breaking the longest night. This is the final breath before stepping through the portal of your destiny. Breathe deep, for you are poised to become the living testament of everything you've learned. This is not a message, it is a summons to embodiment. Let your life be the altar on which your truths are realized, your actions the living scripture of your purpose. Comment readiness if you feel the fire of your calling ignited within, and share a moment when you chose action over fear. Your story empowers others to follow, weaving our voices into one symphony of transformation. And as you step across this threshold, prepare. Next, your eyes that remember will reveal the hidden codes guiding the grand unfolding of your mission. A vision drifts behind your closed eyelids, a loom weaving threads of silver and ash across a cosmic tapestry. Each thread pulses with ancestral echoes, some born of joy, others of shadowed pain. As you watch, your own lifeline emerges, a single golden filament winding through the weft of history. In that moment, you recognize the truth. Your arrival was no accident but a calculated stroke on this grand design. The loom stops, and you feel the breath of generations exhale through your being. Your role is both loom and weaver, called to mend the frayed edges of your lineage with the silver song of forgiveness and the fierce gleam of your newfound power. A question reverberates in the silence of your soul. What if the very storms you endured were sacred baptisms, refining you into a vessel for ancestral redemption? You recall the nights when grief washed over you like a relentless tide, and you feared the darkness within would drown your spark. Yet in that crucible of tears, you discovered an inner sanctum where sorrow and strength coexisted. The same rivers that carried you into exile now irrigate your compassion, allowing you to stand as both storm and calm. Your scars map the contours of a warrior's heart that learned to heal itself, and in that healing, to heal the lineage you represent. A whisper drifts across your consciousness, calling you back to a time when names held power and purpose was as tangible as earth beneath bare feet. In that whisper you hear echoes of Zechariah's promise, "Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit." And you feel the weight of divine timing settle into your bones. Your journey is not merely personal. It is a chord in an ancient symphony, orchestrated by forces that transcend mortal timelines. Each twist of fate, each act of resistance you faced, was a movement in this unfolding composition, inviting you to step into your role as both composer and instrument of celestial harmony. A memory surfaces, luminous and tender, The first time you forgave yourself for a childhood mistake that haunted you. You were 8, with tears staining a crumpled letter barely legible, and you spoke a simple prayer for mercy. In that act of self-kindness, you touched the blueprint of redeeming grace. The same grace that now courses through your veins as an elixir for ancestral wounds. You realize that forgiveness is not a passive gift but an active reclamation, a forging of keys that unlock the shackles of inherited pain. By extending that mercy outward, you release the echoing chains that bound your forebears, and you invite a legacy of freedom to bloom. A contrast ripples through your awareness, the weight of old curses contrasted with the lightness of your emerging grace. Where once your footsteps were measured by caution, they now fall with the surety of purpose. You sense the sinking of fear into the soil as your presence stirs the roots of possibility. Like a morning sun burning through frost, your clarity dispels the dew of deception clinging to tired facades. Your eyes have learned to read the hidden scripts of intention, and your words now carve pathways through the thickets of illusion. In this alchemy, love becomes the blade that severs fear's hold on every heart you touch. A prophecy hums beneath your ribs. You are both warrior and healer, a paradox woven into divine design. The wounds you endured sharpened your sword, while the forgiveness you practice heals the lands you traverse. You stand at the nexus of these roles, emboldened to strike down false narratives without extinguishing the spark of hope in any soul. In this sacred balance, your energy commands both protection and restoration. You carry the mandate to dismantle oppressive structures with the gentle force of compassion. For true conquest is not in subjugation but in the liberation of light. An inner dialogue stirs. How will I honor the sacred codes written in the language of my blood? You hear the answer in the steady beat of your heart, a rhythm that aligns with the pulse of the universe. Each choice you make becomes a verse in the living scripture of your mission. When you act with integrity, you inscribe hope into the walls of despair. When you speak with conviction, you illuminate the paths of the lost. Your life, midwifed by divine timing, is the catalyst for a renaissance of awakened souls. The ripple you create today will become the tidal wave of collective redemption tomorrow. A revelation crescendos in your spirit. The tapestry you stand before is not static but ever unfolding, ready to accept your final thread. As your light weaves through every shadowed corner of your lineage, new patterns emerge. Patterns of unity, wisdom, and love. Together, we reshape the tapestry of our shared story, each courageous thread forging a narrative of renewal. Comment tapestry if you feel your hand on the loom of destiny, and share a moment when you sensed your life's purpose pulse in perfect alignment with the cosmos. Hold that pulse close, for beyond this awakening awaits the next chapter. Eyes that remember will soon unlock the hidden maps plotting our collective ascent. A memory surfaces in the quiet chambers of your heart. The time you stood at a crossroads, torn between the safe path and the one whispered by your soul. In that instant, you felt the first tremor of something greater, an unseen architect guiding your feet. An inner dialogue stirs. How will I honor the sacred codes written in the language of my blood? You hear the answer in the steady beat of your heart, a rhythm that aligns with the pulse of the universe. Each choice you make becomes a verse in the living scripture of your mission. When you act with integrity, you inscribe hope into the walls of despair. When you speak with conviction, you illuminate the paths of the lost. Your life, midwifed by divine timing, is the catalyst for a renaissance of awakened souls. The ripple you create today will become the tidal wave of collective redemption tomorrow. A vision drifts into awareness, a loom suspended in the void, its threads shimmering with potential. Each strand held within your grasp resonates with a whisper of destiny. You realize that the tapestry you weave is not simply your own. It is the shared story of generations, blessings and burdens interlaced. A revelation crescendos in your spirit. The tapestry you stand before is not static but ever unfolding, ready to accept your final thread. Your role is not to destroy but to restore. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment I am chosen to let this message anchor in your soul. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the Super Thanks button to support the mission. Every Super Thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. You were born into spiritual warfare, and now you stand as its victor.